Thank you for listening to the roundtable discussions. We're honored to have Danaila Paspalanova as part of the Women in Coal Ash series. The motivation behind this series is to show how some of the top women in the industry have broken down barriers for others to follow. My name's Stuart Keeter. I will be the facilitator for this forum. I'm the senior consultant for MRI Raleigh, and MRI is a Forbes top 20 executive recruiting company, and I recruit top talent for companies in the civil, power, and environmental areas. So now let's begin the forum. Danaila, tell me a little bit about your career and what is your current job?
Hi, Stu. First, I would like to thank you and MRI for having me here. It's a real pleasure. A little bit about me, my career, my current job. I was born in Bulgaria and I received my education there. My undergraduate degree and my Master's of Science are in Environmental Engineering. I also hold a Certified Hazardous Materials credential, and my first job was an engineer in a construction firm. I worked there for a few years and I signed up for the Green Card Lottery, which is a diversity program of the US government. I was very excited. My name was selected, and in 2009, I had the opportunity to relocate to the US, and I did. And it was a very tough time. The economy here was kind of in a low state, and I was relieved when I managed to get a job as an environmental consulting in New York. I worked there for about 3 years, and then I accepted a position at Amilcar doing EHS consulting. I worked my way up, and I'm currently the Senior Vice President responsible for the Southeast expansion of the company's operation. And my key experience includes conducting environmental health and safety hazard assessments. I also develop and implement workers and community air sampling programs. We work with real-time environmental monitoring and construction and hazardous waste sites, which includes air, noise, radiation, and weather. And this is in a nutshell.
Oh, that's awesome. How was it growing up in Bulgaria?
You know, that is a great question, and some of the stuff are really kind of hard to process and explain nowadays. I'm actually from the generation that was born during the communism, and it was raised in the transition between the communism and the capitalism. So the reforms towards liberalization of the Eastern Bloc started with the Soviet Union, and Bulgaria actually felt that in the late 1980s. I have some personal recollection of life behind the Iron Curtain and afterwards, and some of the things they're just, you know, very, very kind of strange for current person. For example, I remember we had electricity schedule. There were 2 hours you have electricity and 2 hours you don't. So I remember my mom rushing around trying to do laundry and cook and prep everything during those 2 hours when the power is on. I did a lot of my school homeworks on candlelight. There was nothing in the stores. The grocery stores were empty. We had to wait on lines for milk and yogurt and bread. After 1989, we started celebrating the holidays like Christmas and Easter. Prior than that, we only had New Year's. And families that were trying to celebrate those holidays, they were doing it secretly. For Christmas, I remember we were getting bananas and kiwis and oranges because the supplies were so low of the tropical fruits. So that was the only time when you can actually get it once a year. But the most memorable thing that I remember was when my mom, she got a line of credit that after the inflation and the currency changed, it was worth 5 years' salaries. And with that money, she sent me to England. She sent me to London for 1 week to study English. There was no opportunities in Bulgaria. Everything was very expensive. In 2007, Bulgaria joined the European Union and NATO, and things are much better since then. Now life is I mean, it's still one of the poorest countries of the European Union, but it is a country of the European Union, so things are getting much better.
Wow,
Very interesting.
that's amazing. That's an amazing story. Looking into the future, what job do you want in the future?
Yeah, since I'm fairly new to the Southeast, I mean, I moved to the Northeast. I was there for a few years. I'm fairly new here to the Southeast, and I want to kind of focus on the job I have for the foreseeable future. And I want to continue to grow and succeed, and mostly I want to bring value to the industry.
Very good. Why did you choose CCR?
That is a very good question. That is a very good question, and I will tell you a story that will give you some background, and we will kind of it will tie to the answer of this question. So in the late 1980s, few large corporations that own the legacy metal manufacturing companies, they faced a very difficult remediation challenge. So since the 1800s, when the chromium metal processing industry first processed the chromite ore near Baltimore, there was a byproduct that was called chrome ore processing residue. And it was part of the waste stream from this manufacturing process. An interesting fact is that for 1 pound of product, there were 2 pounds of waste generated. So for decades, this waste has been used to fill in low-lying areas in big population centers along the East Coast. It had a unique characteristic of the chrome ore waste was that it was considered an excellent construction fill. But once you put it in the ground over time, it actually started to expand and it became a structural problem. Another thing about it was that it's a significant amount of hexavalent chromium that remained in the chrome ore waste. And as you know, hexchrome is recognized as a toxic chemical that would have significant adverse health impacts at low concentrations. So by the early 2000s, there were major remediation actions that began to address these issues. And at the time, there was a very little data on the potential exposure to workers and the public to airborne hexavalent chromium from the core ore waste just being generated. So initially, there was a pushback on implementing an extensive exposure assessment program because the initial position of owners and contractors was that air sampling data could possibly be used against them. Then it was decided that it is very important to fill in that exposure data vacuum, and this is how began an extensive exposure assessment and monitoring program for both on-site workers and the public. It was recognized that if chrome ore waste remediation created airborne concentration of hexchrome above the recognized safe threshold, then we can aggressively take efforts and bring those to lower levels. Conversely, if the chrome 6 airborne concentration were minimal and well below the threshold levels, this is data that can be very useful to frame the message that the chrome ore waste remediation can be conducted safely. So since 2006, there were thousands of hexchrome air samples and millions of real-time airborne data points that were collected to represent potential exposure results to workers and the neighboring public. And all of these results tell the story that there is no hazard to airborne hexchrome exposure while the chrome ore waste remediation is being conducted. So the major outcome of this program shows that all chrome remediation work can be conducted safely for workers on site and for the neighboring public. Today, these programs actually represent the standard of care for every major chromium remediation project that's being conducted. And with all that being said, I want to apply these lessons to the coal ash industry to work towards the same results we had with the chrome ore waste. And this is why I chose CCR. I'm very passionate about the industry, and I believe that the lessons we learn can definitely bring value to the industry.
That's great. Who inspires you?
This is, yeah, this is a great question. It may sound typical, but I think that's my mom. So my mom was in a non-traditional field when I was growing up. She was a faculty member of the university in the sports field, which was not typical for a woman at the time. So by seeing what she was doing, I was inspired not to limit my choices. She is the person who helped me learn about the importance of the environment. And by that being a part of this, and perhaps I could make a difference in the world one day.
Very good. What has been the most surprising part of being a woman working in CCR?
Well, there hasn't been any major surprises to me, quite honestly. I do have noticed that there are very few women in CCR, and I hope that will change in the future. Hopefully, more women will follow our lead and pursue careers in a current male-dominated field. There are many opportunities out there. There are many opportunities for women to grow and shine, and I really hope the industry will kind of, you know, change as we go.
What's been your favorite part of your career?
If I get to think about it, actually, I think there are several things that excite me regarding my career. My career is always changing depending on the latest demand, and changing is just a normal part of work life to me. I enjoy the challenge or complex problem to solve, and in our line of work, we are often the problem solvers. So I enjoy meeting so many new people, very new, interesting people, and every person is unique and come to the table with a different set of perspectives and experience, and I learn from all of them. So I think that's like my favorite part of my career.
Very good. What is your favorite project that you worked on?
This is a tough question. This is a very tough question, but what I do know is that whatever the project, I find that what I always enjoy is the experience of bringing together multidisciplinary teams to develop a strategy on prioritizing college funds portfolios. The variances include different personalities and biases and experiences, and team members come from several states and cultural settings, along with the fact that everyone has different parts of the project that you have to focus on. And the results on those projects are satisfying as we work together on a strategy that everyone is satisfied with, and we make the project successful. And and I think this is what makes my every project my favorite project.
What is the biggest challenge of being a woman working in CCR?
um, you know, I don't believe my biggest challenge is different than any challenge a man has. It is critical for each of us to know what we are doing and to build trust with each other. Whether male or female, I think we all must focus on the project at hand and be driven by what's right. So I don't know if it's any different than for a man.
What is the biggest change you've seen in the field since you started?
Well, the biggest change. I think the field is changing and people are recognizing the importance of gathering quality data to prove safe operations. Before there seemed to be no strategy, there was no information to prove whether things when there is an EHS risk or not. And by developing an effective exposure assessment programs, companies have been able to document how operations, work practices, environmental controls are being implemented responsibly, and keeping exposure levels well below unsafe thresholds. And I think that what the car wash industry have been missing to date is a standard of care to show sufficient quality standardized data that shows this project can be completed safely without health concerns to workers and the community.
Interesting. What advice would you give someone new starting out?
I think the most important is be patient. Be patient. Look forward and anticipate the future, and do not dwell on the past. Use the lessons learned and focus on the task in hand. But most important is patience. This is the biggest lesson I learned when I came to the States, and I still think that this is the best advice I can give to anyone. Just patience.
What has been the most challenging for you?
The most challenging. It has been challenging explaining the importance of data. No data is important until you need it. It's important to take to sample and to kind of look and find out that it's a positive story. And if for some reason the results don't come back low, take action and drive it to a low level. Having the data gives you the ability to take actions and to make it better. And 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 explaining that concept has been the most challenging for me.
Okay. Where do you see the industry right now?
I think the car wash industry has been below the radar for many years, and due to some catastrophic events, the recognition of hazard is getting attention and is driving the industry to change. This is a safe industry that can be managed correctly, and it's important to develop programs and data to support that we protect the people and the community. So, this is where I see the industry. It is changing, and it's definitely changing for the better.
What would surprise us about you?
that is that is a good one. Um, well, what would surprise you about me? Well, if you could see me, you will see that I'm short. I'm 5 feet, and my parents, actually, both of my parents, they used to play on the national basketball teams for Bulgaria, and
Oh
they're both
wow.
over 6 foot tall.
Well, very good. Well, thank you again. This has just been wonderful. If you do have any follow-up questions for Danaila, please email Stuart at mriraleigh.com, and that's spelled Stuart at mriraleigh.com. Thank you again.
Thank you.